Welcome to season 11 of Raising Healthy Mothers. I am so pumped for a new season, especially after the response I got from last week's podcast special. Before I dive into today's topic, can I ask you a favor? I have a goal of reaching 1,000 downloads a month for this podcast, and I'm very, very close. In April, I got to 933 downloads, which is amazing. So, can you help me do better and reach my goal? There are two ways you can help. First, if you know anyone who would love to listen to this episode or any other that you've listened to, then please pass it on and recommend it to them. Secondly, if you love this episode or any other that you've ever listened to, then I'd love it if you would leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. That way, the podcast becomes more visible and becomes recommended to others. Help me out. And if I reach my goal, I'll let you know and maybe we can do something to celebrate. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. I am recording this on Monday, 6th of May, which is apparently International No Diet Day. And this seems very timely because something got my goat recently about diets that I really need to talk about. So there's a very, very influential social media account who is very vocal about the fact that the only way to lose weight is to eat less calories than you burn. He's very dismissive. No, I'd say he's downright rude about anyone who suggests that your microbiome might have an effect, that reducing inflammation might have an effect, or any other more holistic approach. Basically, as far as he's concerned, it's calories in and calories out. If I'm honest, when I see this sort of thing on social media, I just end up doubting myself and what I do. He has a huge following. He has his own nutrition course and is incredibly authoritative in the way he talks about calories in, calories out. And he insists his approach is completely grounded in research and evidence. And so, because there isn't enough evidence for any of the holistic approaches, then they simply cannot be true. Now, I'm not going to name names because I'm not rude about others, but I do think it's important to talk about why this got my goat so much. Because there is so much more to me than calories in, calories out when it comes to weight loss. And I think there are 5 reasons why I encourage my clients to move away from it. So, number one, there's no point counting calories if you don't look at stress and sleep first. I often have clients come to me and say, I want to lose the extra 5 or 10 kilos that I've gained since having a baby. I've tried dieting and exercising more, but I just can't lose the weight. I know exactly what it's like to look and feel so different when you look in the mirror, especially if it's been a few years postpartum, and you think, surely I should have lost the weight by now. But when I dig deep and have a consultation with them, a pattern tends to emerge. They still have erratic sleep, even if their children aren't waking them much in the night. They struggle to have any downtime, they feel guilty when relaxing, and they just can't switch off. They eat 5, 6 more times a day, including snacks, often starting at, say, at 7 a.m. and finishing at 11 p.m. That means they are eating at least every 3 hours during the daytime and only have 8 hours overnight when they aren't eating. And they rarely sit down for a proper meal most of the time, rarely factor in their own food preferences into a meal plan, or they eat after their children are asleep, which might be sometimes at 9 or 10 o'clock at night by the time they finish cooking. For me, all of these add up to a picture of poor sleep and high stress, both of which are huge factors in making worse food choices, increased sugar cravings, and as well as the sheer fact of just being too tired to think about what to do about, well, anything. So the second reason is there's so much more to health than just reducing the numbers on the scale. I know most of the time clients want to see their actual weight go down, but we all know those super skinny celebrities that look anything but healthy. And we often end up chasing a weight or an image of ourselves from when we were much, much younger, maybe even teenagers, assuming that somehow something went wrong. And if we could only just get back to that weight, then we'd be back on track. I don't know how old you are, but for me, that's chasing someone from almost a quarter of a century ago. That's really insane. My life has completely changed. I like to think of a slightly morbid question. On my deathbed, what do I want to look back on and remember my life for? The answer almost definitely isn't going to be, I wish I had spent more time restricting what I eat, avoiding my favorite food, and obsessing about what I look like. And here's another question to think about this. What do I want my children to remember me for? Again, it's definitely not trying to chase a version of me that they never even met. That person might have been skinny, but did they know a good thing about being a great mother? Like I said, there's so much more to health than what the scales say. There's running around with your children healthy. There's dancing till you drop healthy. There's being told you look glowing healthy. There's getting down on your knees and tickling your grandchildren healthy. And then there's growing old and still getting to live at home completely independent healthy. Those versions of healthy do not come from counting calories. They come from building strong muscles, eating the food that bring you joy, surrounding yourself with positivity, and having great relationships. That's the sort of healthy I want my children to be inspired by. So, the third reason is counting calories adds to stress and obsession around food. As I said in number one, many of my clients come to me with really high stress levels. And one thing I am conscious of adding to their plate, more stress. And to me, worrying about calories in your food adds to that stress. Weighing, worrying, calculating whether I should eat that brownie for lunch or leave it for tomorrow when I'm next going to exercise. It's a lot to think about. And that's really not what we need as mothers when we have so much on our mind already. And I think it feels an obsession about calories and about food. I tried counting calories once, long before I knew much about nutrition. I found myself choosing to buy packaged food rather than cooking from scratch because it would tell me exactly how many calories were in there. I mean, that's crazy because I love cooking. I used to love preparing lunches for myself, but because I didn't know how much calories was in stuff, I didn't really want to weigh everything obsessively. I just bought stuff instead. I mean, what instinctively feels healthier? A meal made entirely from scratch with care and love, or one bought in a supermarket that was made with ingredients from across the world, assembled in a factory, and put into plastic? I realized quite quickly that I wasn't really thinking rationally because I was dogmatically following a single rule that I had decided would solve my weight problem. And that added enormously to this obsessive behavior. All I could think of was what it said on the packet and whether that would fit with what I was allowed that day. That is not how I wanted to live my life. It didn't last very long. So, the fourth reason is I think there are so many more reasons to exercise than simply because you want to create a calorie deficit. Do weights because it makes you strong. Do yoga because it makes you feel flexible. Join a team sport because it makes you part of a community. Go for a run because it gives you headspace to think. You can enjoy exercise just because it makes you feel good. Don't do it as a punishment for eating more than your share of calories today, or because you think you should because you want to lose weight. More than anything you do in life, you want to exercise because of the way it makes you feel. Otherwise, you can quickly become bored and demotivated because exercise can be really hard to stick to if you don't enjoy it. And then reason number five is counting calories is soul destroying and takes the joy out of food. Taking joy and pleasure in eating is so important to me. And it's one of the most heartbreaking things I hear when people say they don't love cooking and they don't enjoy food very much. As someone who takes enormous pleasure in food, this hurts. I understand that everyone is different and not everyone enjoys food in the way that I do. But digging deep, there's often an underlying trauma around food, whether that's as a child and being forced to finish their whole plate, or as a teen battling body image issues, or as an adult constantly trying to lose weight by dieting and calorie counting. And that has led to a fear around food. And when we fear something, how can we ever enjoy it? So it takes a lot of gentle encouragement to try more variety and new ways of preparing food, retraining the taste buds to decipher different flavors and find enjoyment in them, and a whole new way of viewing food as a source of nourishment and joy over punishment and fear. So, for me, these five reasons encompass my deeply seated view that there is so much more to life than worrying about what and how much to eat. I hate being prescriptive in my approach to nutrition, and to me, counting calories comes up short when it comes to taking an easy approach to eating. Ultimately, we often can't unpick all the various factors and influences that cause something to work out, or conversely, cause something like weight gain to happen in the first place. But I don't think counting calories is the answer to weight loss, especially if you are already struggling with sleep and stress. And I do strongly believe that if you take the stress away from food, start enjoying it for how it tastes and how it makes you feel, and focus on what gives you sustained energy, then you likely will start enjoying the way you look in the mirror more, whether you've lost weight or not. So, those are the five reasons why I just really hate the idea that counting calories, calories in, calories out, are the only way to lose weight. I think there's so much more to health than what the scales say. And there's so much more to life than being really obsessive about food. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. I will be back next week for another episode. See you then.